to my review / demo of my 2004 Epiphone Explorer. Now, I've had a fascination with the Explorer ever since, like a lot of other people, I first saw James Hetfield, the singer and rhythm guitarist of Metallica, playing one. Now, just before this, I discovered the Explorer about a year into learning to play the guitar, and I think like a lot of people, especially people who like rock and metal, I really like the look of the Flying V, or the Jackson V, any of the Vs. But once I saw a picture of someone playing one of these, I didn't want any other sort of funny-shaped guitar. Well, maybe the Dimebag Darrell kind of Deans, but that's a story for another day. And I absolutely lusted after one of these, and lo and behold, my best mate Harrison, he gets one, and he gets an Epiphone Explorer in black with gold hardware, and I turn green with envy. I'm so jealous. Even worse than that, another childhood friend of mine called Joe gets one in the typical sort of gold-looking sort of butterscotch, the colour they always do for the Carina-bodied Explorers. And I was just so jealous. And I go on, years later, playing other guitars, and lo and behold, about a year or two ago, you might have noticed this guitar recently appearing on my channel under the New Gear Day moniker, and this actually might be one of the quickest New Gear Day to review videos I've ever done. Fancy that. And lo and behold, it is a black Explorer with gold hardware. It's the exact same guitar. So I'd like to start this video by thanking Harrison very much for selling me his old Epiphone Explorer. And this guitar has a bit of a funny story too. You see, my friend Harrison is an absolute guitar hoarder, and he's obsessed with Gibson. I think he's got about 20. And when you get that many guitars, you end up having a problem of not really having the time to play all of them. So, me being his friend, I was allowed to borrow some of his guitars, and this was one of them. And in that particular video, I was at the time borrowing it. But I kind of liked it so much that I tugged at him until eventually he agreed to sell it to me. Now that leads on to another reason as to why I'm making this video, as I would like to demonstrate that you can get yourself an Epiphone Explorer for a not exorbitant price. For you see, the new Epiphone Explorers that they've just released, an Epiphone Flying V, which do have Gibson pickups and sound fantastic, they cost an absolutely mental price. These new Epiphone Explorers are costing anywhere up to £1,299, which is absolutely bonkers. American price here.
Hello, Future Adam here. Now, going on to Guitar Center's website to see how much this guitar costs in the United States, it's $1,299, so the same actual number as the British price. But just bear in mind that, as far as I know, with American things, they don't show you the tax until afterwards, because as far as I know, tax is different per state. But also, something to bear in mind is the fact that the pound is a stronger currency than the dollar. So £1,299 is very much not the same thing as $1,299. To give any Americans an idea, I've just converted £1,299 into dollars, and as of today's recording, that amount in dollars is $1,652.72. So that is how much this guitar costs in Britain for you guys to understand. Unfortunately, things always seem a bit more expensive over here. Right, back to the video.
Which is, ridiculous considering the fact that Epiphone is the budget-friendly, or is supposed to be the budget-friendly equivalent to Gibson. I've heard rumours that they might be releasing another set that are under £1,000, which is a bit more like it. But I just wanted to demonstrate to you that you can get essentially the same guitar, minus the pickups, which can easily be swapped to give you still less than the total price of that new Epiphone, for a considerably better price. You see, mates' rates probably came into it, but I paid £350 for this guitar. I've seen some of the cheaper made models go for a little bit less online, and some models similar to this one going for a little bit more online. But you can still grab yourself a nice bargain, and then if you don't like the pickups, like I plan on changing them, you can change out the pickups. So let's go through exactly what you're getting in an old Epiphone Explorer like this. First things first, and something that people always talk about when it comes to Explorers and Flying Vs, specifically the Epiphone and Gibson ones, is what the body material is made of. Now, they do make some Carina body ones which they paint black, and I believe this is a Carina body. That said, it could be a mahogany. Honestly, unless I decide to pick away at the paint, you're never going to tell. Typically, you'd see these in the, I'll show a picture up there, this sort of more semi-translucent colour to show it off. Slightly controversial point here. Tone wood's a myth, so it doesn't really matter whether you get a mahogany one or a Carina one, they're going to sound the same. Every time this is put to the test, especially put to a blindfold test, so you don't sort of hear with your eyes, no one can really tell a difference. I know some people really, really disagree with that, but I would say that if there is a difference, it is probably so slim that the human ear can't really tell it. Remember, the solid body electric guitar was invented to stop, as amps were getting louder, hollow body guitars were feeding back more. It was designed to dampen vibration in the body so that the strings don't feed back. They are designed so that the material, and specifically the body of the guitar, does as little as possible. And, like I said, it's so minimal that you probably won't ever notice. So if you're looking for a bargain, ones where you can't tell if it's Carina or not, or ones that are labelled as mahogany, tend to go a little bit cheaper. But it doesn't matter which way it is either way. It's a fairly lightweight guitar for what it is. Being a sort of Gibson style guitar, they do tend to be quite heavy. Mahogany is a fairly heavy wood, cream is fairly heavy wood. Rosewood fretboard. Talking about the woods, it does unfortunately dive a little bit. It's not gone head all the way down to the bottom like some SGs do, but it does have a little bit of a dive, unfortunately. Which maddens me slightly, how a guitar with a headstock so small and a body so big has neck dive. Doesn't quite make sense to me, but hey, physics, man. It's got Grover machine heads. They're not locking, but they're really, really quite nice tuners. I've had really good tuning stability of this guitar. Epiphone pickups, they're okay. They're a bit muddy in my opinion. I'm going to talk a bit more about the electronics in a second. You get a 3-way toggle switch, which is typical bridge, both middle. Then we have volume, and a master tone. Typical jack output. It is a typical Gibson scale length of 24 3/4 inches. I almost forgot it then. We have a Tunematic style bridge and a typical stop tailpiece. I don't know if this is ABR1 or Nashville, but if you know the difference, you can probably tell from just that. Playing wise, it's a very comfortable playing guitar, even with the dive. Tuning stability is pretty good too, actually, all things considered. This guitar does have a little bit of high action and needs a bit of a setup. And that's going to lead me on to another kind of odd and interesting story about this guitar. You see, as I previously mentioned, Harrison, he's off in different places a lot of the time, that his job takes him, honestly, around the world. And so sometimes he has to sort of store his guitars where he can. And this poor old thing spent at least a year, possibly more, of its life in a shower. It was in a hard case, just propped up in the shower that I don't know how often it had been used beforehand, but obviously was being used to store things, so it wasn't being used from that point on. So unfortunately this guitar does have a couple of problems. Once again, if you're going to go and buy your own one, likelihood is it probably hasn't spent a year of its life in a shower. But what I will show you is, if I can, I'm not sure how well this is going to appear on the camera, hopefully my ring light will help me here. You might notice that some of the frets, not the frets themselves, but they're in middle bits where you actually play, they almost look slightly scalloped. And the fact that there's a sort of dip and a bow into them. You can't really feel it, but you can kind of see it sometimes. This guitar is going to be taking a trip to the luthier soon, but I thought I'd do a video stock as it is. I believe the body is at least a 2-piece, possibly a 3-piece, which is pretty typical for a guitar like this. And I'm not sure if it's going to show up on camera, but this is probably due to the fact that it did spend a long time in the shower. There is a line here, I'm not sure how well this will show up on camera, where you can see where you have a difference in the two body sections. Now, according to certain people like Trogly's Guitar Show, he did a video on a early 2000s Gibson Tony Iommi Signature SG, and that had a similar thing. If it's not cracking, it's okay, but what it is where some of the paint ends up going sort of in the seam between one block of wood and another. So I've got that. Actually, you might be able to see that with the ring light just there. There we go. There's a little bit of a blemish on this guitar that you can see, but in terms of structure it feels pretty solid, and I can lean my arm on it, it's very, very comfortable. As well as that, I do have problems with corrosion in electronics. You can see a bit of scuffing and stuff on the pickups there, but it's actually more to do with the switch itself. This switch is corroded quite badly, actually, and unfortunately I haven't been able to gig it all this time, even though I'd love to, because it's a really fun guitar to play and it looks really cool. Because I have a problem where there is corrosion in the pickup selector switch. It'll normally do the neck pickup just fine. Middle pickup sounds a lot like the neck, and then bridge will sometimes just be incredibly weak sounding, and I have to flick back and forth until the bridge properly engages. As well as that, these volumes are supposed to be set per pickup, so I believe it's neck pickup and bridge pickup, but for whatever reason, due to the corrosion clearly causing something in the electronics to cross the wire or go wrong, electricians or luthiers can tell you the proper term for it, they now both work at the same time, and turning them both off doesn't completely end the sound. It's a bit interesting. I actually had Harrison around recently, and he's an engineer in the Royal Navy, and so he knows a thing or six about electronics and fixing things. As they say, if you can fix an Epiphone Explorer, you can fix a helicopter.
If you can fix a car, then you can learn to fix a Lynx Mark 8 helicopter.
That's him. Well, he took this apart and he scraped away a little bit of the corrosion, and it picked up. It started working perfectly again. Unfortunately, the problems have returned, so I'm going to be swapping all the electronics out in this guitar. My plan is just brand new switch. The pots seem okay apart from that little problem, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to get them replaced as well. Just with new ones. I'm going to get rid of one of the volumes, just have master. Actually, I'll probably get rid of this one and have it there. Master volume, master tone. And I'm going to get some new pickups. I'm thinking something nice and hot, like a Seymour Duncan Black Winter. The pickups themselves are quite muddy, actually, and I can hardly remember playing this guitar before it lived in the shower to know if that is caused by corrosion or not, but very sort of muffled sounding woofy pickups. Not really the kind you would think of when you think of, harsh, razor sharp metal tones like you'd want to get from an Explorer. That said, I know the Explorer was made in 1958, long before metal was a twinkle in Tony Iommi's eye, but still, a lot of these guitars can be used as stock and sound really quite nice in metal. This one just tends to sound a little bit more dark and fluffy. Just coming back to this, filming a little bit later, I'm just having a bit of a thought on this. I'm wondering if the bridge pickup in particular sounds muddy, because it might, with the corrosion in the switch, if both of these pots are sort of active whilst I'm using this pickup here, I've noticed that I can turn this one down all the way and it still makes a sound. If I turn that one down, then it turns off. But if I just turn this one down and leave this one on, it makes no difference in sound. So what I think might be happening is it's never fully going into the bridge position, it's always kind of in the middle. And the neck pickup would make the bridge pickup sound a little bit sort of woofy and muffled. So part of me wonders more if it's a fault in electronics or if it is the muffled pickups or not. So the electronics and the almost slightly warped neck aside, this is actually really, really, really good condition, especially for how old it is. It's at the time of filming, a 19-year-old guitar. This guitar is actually older than when I started playing the guitar, by about a year or two, which is quite cool. There are no obvious signs of any real damage at all. I'll do some sweeping shots, but you'd expect with guitars like this, and I used to own a Washburn Dimebag Darrell guitar, so pointy guitars tend to have the paint chipped right off here, but no. There's a tiny little bit of damage there, but nothing where the paint's been chipped off and you can see the wood. It's a very, very clean example of one of these guitars. I feel almost like I'm doing the Trogley's guitar show thing here by showing all the back and everything, and head as well. A little bit here or there, but nothing worse than my normal guitars, which I unfortunately have a bad habit of banging. We have what looks to me like a mother of pearl inlay. That said, if it's a fake one, it's duped me, because it looks really, really nice. I've got to say, incredibly well-wearing frets. When I first sort of saved this guitar from the shower when I was visiting my friend Harrison once, it had strings that had rusted, and unfortunately the frets seem to have a lot of rust or corrosion on them as well, but he's cleaned them up and they look really, really quite nice. I found no dead notes, and there's very few examples, if any, there's a tiny bit there. There are very few examples of the frets being damaged at all, so I doubt, who knows, I'm not a luthier, but I doubt it'll need addressing. It's whatever frets they put in these, maybe these are stainless steel ones, these are bloody hard wearing frets, I tell you, they are strong. Strong old frets indeed. These are a bit of a setup, I can see it's got quite high action, but overall it's quite fun to play. If you are more like me and you tend to play more Fenders than Gibson style guitars, the width of the neck will seem a bit funny to you. Not the width this way, which isn't too thick really. I like a fairly chunky neck, but that's a typical, just a standard guitar kind of thickness. If you use the Ibanez, it's going to feel thick, but if you use any other guitar company, not so much. Almost possibly a little bit less deep than the stereotype of a Gibson baseball bat is. But I mean, this end, the width this way, is very, very wide and can make bar chords somewhat uncomfortable sometimes if you're doing them for too long. But due to how flat parts of the neck feel, doing like little runs like that and scales on the neck feel really, really comfortable, especially if you have the proper technique of just having the thumb behind and playing like that. Another point in terms of how the guitar feels, especially in the hand as a play, if you've ever played the Gibson equivalent of the Explorer, it's basically identical. I know in recent years Epiphone and Gibson, like in terms of quality of how they're built and how they feel, have been getting closer and closer and closer. Back when this was made, Epiphones were a bit hit and miss. I feel like especially some of the Les Pauls and some of the SGs. But having played a Gibson Explorer and having played this Epiphone Explorer, they basically feel identical in the hand. So really, if you get one of these, it's pretty much the equivalent of having a Gibson, with the exception of just electronics, which you can always change. But let's quit talking, let's hear it, shall we? Right, so here's our signal chain. It's just Explorer, one lead straight into the amp, and that amp is a Laney VH100R. You're going to hear a little bit of reverb, and that is coming from the amp itself. That being for the clean channel, and that being for the overdriven channel. And then we have two cabinets each being mic'd up. This first Laney cabinet is being mic'd up with a Shure SM57, and these speakers are Celestion 7080s. And the second cabinet is a Marshall Mode 4 cabinet with Celestion Vintage 30s, and that is being mic'd up with an AKG C214. And both of those are being plugged into an M-Audio M-Track Plus, or if the mood takes me, I might even add some audio from the camera. And all the rhythm guitar parts in the backing track are also the Explorer, but they're going through this Marshall Mode 4, and using its emulated output rather than a cabinet, going straight into the M-Audio. And the digital audio workstation I'm using today is Ardour 7. So without any further ado, let's hear how the guitar sounds. So there we have it. I hope you liked the guitar. When you next see it on my channel, I would have probably, fingers crossed, have modified it a little bit. But there we go. Hopefully this proves to you that you don't have to absolutely break the bank in order to be able to afford an Explorer, especially seeing as how much some of the Epiphones are starting to cost nowadays. Have a look on the second-hand market, see if you can get yourself a nice Explorer, and even if it's got a couple of little issues, probably the cost of changing parts or replacing it might even be less than buying one of the brand new ones brand new. And who knows, you might get yourself an absolute bargain like I did. And I hope to see you in the next video. If you enjoyed, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.